The distress signal was not a message. It was fear given shape. It tore through the silent lanes of deep space, riding every open frequency like a wound that refused to close. Any species listening heard it the same way, not in words, but in instinct. Something ancient was dying. Something powerful was screaming for help. And far beyond the borders of polite, civilized space, on a heavy blue world the galaxy had learned to avoid, humanity heard it too. The signal reached Earth at 3:17 Universal Time. In the subterranean command vault beneath the Andes, lights flared to life as dormant systems woke. Long-range sensors aligned. Analysts froze mid-step. For 3 centuries, humanity had listened to the universe from behind invisible walls, watched but never welcomed. The quarantine beacons placed around Sol still burned, warning others to stay away. Humans had obeyed. They had waited. Now someone was begging. Admiral Mara Cade stood alone at the center of the circular command chamber, her hands clasped behind her back. She was old by military standards, her hair streaked with gray, her face carved by gravity, war, and time. She had spent her life preparing for a moment everyone else believed would never come. "Play it again," she said. The sound filled the room once more. A layered shriek, millions of voices woven into one desperate cry. It rose and fell like a dying tide. Silence followed. "That's not a battle signal," said Commander Elias Rourke quietly. "That's extinction." Mara nodded. "Origin. Galactic compact space. Outer spiral. World designation pending. Whatever's attacking them isn't stopping to talk." The room grew tense. Everyone there knew the unspoken truth. The compact had fleets, weapons, technology far beyond what humans had seen at first contact. If they were screaming like this, then whatever hunted them was worse. A younger officer hesitated. This signal crossed the quarantine line. Responding would be seen as an invitation. Mara finished. Or a confession. She turned, eyes sharp. "We didn't ask to be locked away. But we did promise ourselves something while we waited." The screens around the chamber shifted, displaying historical footage. First contact. Alien ships hovering over Earth's atmosphere. Panic. Fear. Then retreat. Then silence. Then the beacons. "Humanity does not ignore children screaming in the dark," Mara said. "Not anymore." A new alert chimed. Said Rourke. "We're receiving a direct transmission. Visual channel opening." The image stabilized slowly, resolving into something unfamiliar and fragile. The being on screen was tall and thin, its skin softly glowing in patterns of shifting light. 4 eyes blinked in uneven rhythm. Its posture sagged with exhaustion. "This is Speaker Talon of the Lirati Concord," the alien said. Its voice trembled. "If any sentient species can hear this, we beg you. Our world is being consumed. The Devourer swarm has breached our final defense ring. 12 billion souls are trapped. We have nothing left." It paused, light flickering weakly across its body. "We were wrong about you, humans," Talon said. "We thought you were monsters. Now we are praying you are." The transmission cut. No one spoke. Mara felt something old and dangerous stir in her chest. Not anger. Not pride. Purpose. "Open fleet channel," she ordered. Across Earth and its colonies, alarms sounded. In shipyards orbiting Mars. In the shadowed hangars of Luna. In deep space docks where vessels slept like coiled beasts. Crews froze, then moved. Orders flowed. The Human Defense Coalition had never mobilized like this before. Because it had never been allowed to. In the shipyard above Jupiter, Captain Elias Chen watched his destroyer, HDC Resolute, come alive. Armor plates locked into place. Rail cannons aligned. Heat signatures spiked as reactors surged. "They finally called," his executive officer said, awe in her voice. Chen nodded. "Yeah. And they're about to learn why they were afraid." Far away, beyond the neat borders of the compact, the Lirati homeworld burned. The sky was black with movement. Not ships, bodies. Endless, crawling shapes that blotted out the stars as they descended. Cities had fallen in hours. Forests vanished in minutes. Oceans boiled as the swarm drank them dry. The swarm did not hate. It did not rage. It consumed. Elder Archivist Selwyn stood inside an orbital refuge, watching her world die beneath her. The shelter trembled as impacts rocked its hull. Children cried. Adults stared in hollow silence. Any response? Someone whispered. Selwyn closed her eyes. She had authorized the signal. Sent the plea. Condemned herself to judgment. Yes, she said softly. Someone heard us. What did they say? She remembered the final words of the transmission that had come back, encoded in a format no compact species used anymore. A single sentence. We are on our way. 3 days later, space itself seemed to tear open. Human ships did not arrive gently. They punched into the system like thrown blades, gravity screaming as jump drives collapsed reality around them. 12 vessels, small by compact standards. Laughably few. The swarm reacted instantly. Tendrils of living ships shifted, converging like blood sensing a wound. From the bridge of the Resolute, Chen watched the tactical display light up red. Enemy numbers. Too many to count, came the reply. Chen smiled grimly. Good. That means we won't miss. The human fleet did something no compact admiral would have considered. They advanced. No defensive formations. No retreat paths. They burned straight toward the heart of the swarm, engines flaring, weapons charging. On the Resolute, Chen keyed the fleet-wide channel. All ships, he said calmly. Rules of engagement are simple. Protect civilians. Kill anything that gets in the way. He paused. And remember, this is why they locked us away. As the first human rail cannons fired, hurling slugs at a fraction of light speed, the galaxy began to understand something it had forgotten. Humans did not fear monsters. They hunted them. The first human volley did not just hit the swarm. It rewrote the battlefield. Metal slugs, no bigger than a human fist, crossed thousands of kilometers in seconds and slammed into living ships like meteor strikes. 3 swarm carriers burst apart, spilling black tissue and burning fluids into space. The debris did not drift like scrap. It twitched, trying to crawl back together. On the Lirati Refuge Station's Sanctuary Ark, survivors watched through shaky external cameras. Many had believed the humans would arrive like diplomats, talk first, threaten later. Instead, humanity arrived like a storm. Elder Archivist Selwyn held her breath as the human fleet moved deeper into the system. 12 ships. Only 12. Against a red tactical map that looked like an ocean of enemies. A young shelter officer leaned close to her. Are they charging into it? Selwyn's bioluminescent skin flickered pale with confusion. No sane commander would. But humans did not come from sane worlds. On the bridge of the HDC Resolute, Captain Elias Chen gripped the edge of his console as the ship shuddered. A swarm lance, an organic beam of superheated particles, had skimmed their flank, turning armor plating into glowing slag. Damage report. Chen snapped. Outer layer breached, inner hull holding, his executive officer, Lieutenant Sonar Voss, reported. We can take 3 more hits like that before we start losing compartments. Chen didn't blink. Then we don't take 3 more. He pointed at the screen. The swarm ships were not arranged like fleets. They moved like predators in a pack, flowing toward the human ships in waves, trying to surround them. They're learning, Voss muttered. Chen's mouth tightened. So will we. Across the fleet channel, Admiral Maracade's voice cut through the noise, calm and iron-hard. Phase 1 is still on schedule. Keep them focused on us. Do not let them reach the refuge. A junior officer hesitated. Phase 1? We haven't. We have, Mara said, interrupting. You just haven't understood it yet. Her flagship, HDC Anvil Crown, drifted slightly apart from the formation. Its spinal cannons rotated, and something huge unfolded from its belly, an array of dull, angular pods. The swarm reacted instantly. Hundreds of smaller organisms peeled away to intercept. Now, Mara said. The pods opened. They didn't fire missiles. They released junk. Scrap metal. Crushed satellites. Old ship hulls. Chunks of asteroid rock. Thousands of pieces, thrown outward in a thick cloud. The Lirati observers couldn't understand it. Even Selluan's trained mind struggled. Then the swarm surged into the debris field, hungry, automatic, certain. And the cloud detonated. Not with fire. With light. A sharp, white flare that washed across cameras and sensors like a blade. Swarm drones spasmed. Their movements turned jerky and confused. Some crashed into each other. Others drifted, trembling, as if blind. Voss stared at the readings. That wasn't an explosion. It was an electromagnetic burst. Chen's eyes narrowed. No. It's worse for them. It's signal poison. The swarm was a hive. A network. It depended on perfect coordination, perfect timing, perfect shared awareness. Humans had studied one thing for centuries: how to break networks. They had done it to each other first. Admiral Mara Cade spoke again, voice flat but deadly. The swarm isn't a swarm if it can't communicate. We don't need to outgun them. We need to make them alone. The human fleet surged forward, cutting through the confused drones like knives through dark water. Chen watched the tactical map shift. It wasn't a miracle. It was design. The humans weren't trying to destroy everything at once. They were carving corridors, shaping space like a trap. But the swarm adapted quickly. Larger carriers held back, sending forward a new wave, thicker, denser, wrapped in layered tissue that reduced the effect of the pulse bursts. They're shielding themselves, Voss said. They're developing countermeasures in real time. Chen felt sweat on his palms. How long until they fully adapt? Minutes, Voss replied. Chen exhaled slowly. Then we don't give them minutes. He opened a private channel to Admiral Cade. The drones are evolving resistance. We're burning time. Mara's response came immediately. I know. You sound confident. I am, Mara said. Because this is still Phase 1. Chen frowned. Then what is Phase 2? For the first time, Mara's voice held something sharp beneath the calm. Teaching. Before Chen could ask, the swarm launched something new. A massive shape emerged from behind a carrier, unfolding like a nightmare flower. It was not a ship in any human sense. It was a living cannon, an organ bigger than a city tower, grown in orbit, fed by consumed worlds. It charged, pulsing, building a beam that would cut through multiple ships in a line. Captain! Voss shouted. That thing is about to fire. Chen's heart hammered. Evasive. Too late. The beam fired. A black-white lance speared space, slicing through the void. The first ship it hit was the HDC Willow Gale, a frigate guarding the corridor to the refuge station. For a second, the Willow Gale held. Then it split in half. The two halves drifted apart like a broken toy. For a heartbeat, there was silence on all channels. Then screaming. Human screaming. Chen's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. The Lirati survivors watching from Sanctuary Ark began to cry again, not from fear this time but from the sudden return of hopelessness. 12 ships. Now 11. The swarm was learning faster than humans could kill. On the Willow Gale, survivors tried to seal compartments. Fires erupted. Vacuum pulled bodies into the dark. And still, one human voice broke through the chaos, crackling, weak, but steady. This is Lieutenant Harper. To any ship, we're venting, but we're not dead yet. Chen grabbed the emissary. Harper. Hold. We're coming. Harper coughed. Captain, don't you dare waste time saving me if it costs those civilians. Chen swallowed. That's an order from you now. A faint laugh. It's a reminder, humans don't leave people behind. But we also don't lose the mission. The channel died. Chen stared at the tactical map. The swarm cannon was charging again. Voss whispered, Voice raw. What do we do? Chen looked at the enemy cannon. Then at the debris field. Then at the broken remains of the Willow Gale. Humans didn't have the compact's numbers or their peaceful certainty. What humans had was a long, brutal education in one truth. If you can't win by force, win by turning the enemy's strength into a weakness. He opened shipwide comms. All hands, Chen said. Listen carefully. We're going to do something stupid. Voss stared. Captain. It will work, he said, and his eyes burned with a cold focus. Because the swarm believes we think like them. He turned to the navigation officer. Plot us a course straight at that cannon. The bridge erupted in protests. That's suicide. We can't survive a second beam. Chen raised his voice. We're not surviving it. We're using it. Silence fell. Voss leaned in slowly. You're planning to make them shoot through us, into their own carrier cluster. Chen nodded. They aim in straight lines. They think in straight lines. They don't understand sacrifice as a weapon. Voss's eyes widened with horror, and then something else. Understanding. Do it, Chen said. Full burn. The Resolute roared forward, engine screaming, a single human ship charging the biggest living cannon in the system. On Sanctuary Arc, Selûan watched and felt her lights flicker with terror. The humans weren't retreating. They were offering themselves as bait. And somehow, they looked absolutely certain the universe would blink first. The HDC Resolute surged forward like a spear thrown at a god. Warning alarms screamed across the bridge. Heat levels spiked. The stars ahead distorted as the swarm's living cannon locked onto the ship, its massive organ glowing brighter with every heartbeat. Target lock confirmed, the tactical officer shouted. Beam firing in 6 seconds. Captain Elias Chen did not slow down. Helm, maintain course, he said calmly. Engineering, divert all reserve power to forward shields. Everything else can burn. Aye, sir, came the reply, tight with fear. Lieutenant Sonar Voss watched the countdown tick down on her console. 6 seconds. 5. 4. She had trained for war her entire life, but nothing in her training had prepared her for this, charging directly into a weapon that had already torn a ship in half. Captain, she said quietly, if this fails. Chen didn't look at her. Then make sure someone tells the civilians we tried. The swarm fired. Space itself seemed to scream as the beam erupted, a line of annihilation that tore toward the Resolute. The forward shields flared blinding white as the beam struck, energy pouring into them like a flood trying to break a dam. Hull integrity dropping. Engineering shouted. Shields at 40%. Hold, Chen said. Just hold. The beam punched through the ship, not cleanly, but violently. Systems overloaded. Consoles exploded. Gravity fluctuated. The Resolute screamed as if it were alive. On Sanctuary Arc, Elder Archivist Selûan gripped the railing as the human ship vanished inside the beam. Many around her turned away, unable to watch. They're dead, someone whispered. Selûan shook her head slowly, her lights flickering with something fierce. No, she said. They chose this. Inside the beam, the Resolute did not stop. It drifted, just enough. Chen's eyes were locked on the external tactical feed. The beam, perfectly straight, continued past the ship, and slammed into the tightly packed cluster of swarm carriers behind it. The effect was catastrophic. Living ships ruptured under the sudden energy surge. Chain reactions tore through the formation as the swarm's own weapon carved through its ranks. Organic matter vaporized. The hive network screamed as feedback ripped through shared consciousness. On every channel, human sensors lit up with chaos. It worked, Voss breathed. Captain, it worked. Chen exhaled slowly. Fire everything. The remaining human ships surged forward, pouring railgun fire and plasma bursts into the disoriented swarm. With their coordination shattered again, this time by their own weapon, the swarm faltered. For the first time since the invasion began, the swarm retreated. Only a little. But enough. On Sanctuary Arc, cheers erupted. Some cried. Some collapsed in relief. Selûne closed her eyes, light pouring from her skin in waves she had not felt in days. The humans had not just saved lives. They had taught the swarm something new. Pain. On the bridge of the Resolute, the celebration was short-lived. "Captain," engineering said grimly, "we're barely holding together. Life support is failing in 3 sections. We can't take another hit like that." Chen nodded. Understood. Admiral Mara Cade's voice cut through the fleet channel. "Captain Chen. Status." "Alive," Chen replied. "But we're done playing shield." "Good," Mara said. "Because Phase 3 is about to begin." Chen frowned. "Phase 3. Adaptation," Mara said. "Just like them, but faster." As if in response, the swarm shifted again. Larger carriers pulled back, forming a defensive shell around something deep within their formation. Something massive. Ancient. Different. "What is that?" Voss asked. Chen stared at the readings. "That's not a ship." The object pulsed slowly, like a sleeping heart. "It's the core," Chen said softly. "The mind." The swarm was changing tactics. No longer just feeding. Now it was thinking, really thinking, for the first time since humans arrived. And that meant it had finally recognized the truth. Humans were not prey. On Earth, far from the battle, deep beneath layers of stone and steel, another decision was being made. Dr. Alina Reyes stood inside the Black Vault, staring at a device humanity had sworn never to use. Not because it was too powerful, but because it was too honest. "This violates every treaty we've ever written," one council member said. Alina didn't turn. "Those treaties were written with beings who surrender." "This could permanently alter a hive consciousness," another argued. "It might even kill it." Alina finally faced them, her eyes cold and tired. "Good." She tapped the console. "The swarm doesn't understand mercy," she said. "But it understands loss. And today, we teach it something it's never felt." On the battlefield, Admiral Mara Cade watched the swarm's core glow brighter, preparing something terrible. "All ships," she said calmly, "prepare for psychological warfare." Chen blinked. "Psychological?" Mara smiled faintly. "Captain, the swarm thinks in one voice. One will. One certainty." She paused. "We're about to introduce doubt." From a stealth ship hidden far beyond the battle, a single human probe detached and slipped into hyperspace, aimed not at the swarm's body, but its mind. As it vanished, Selûne felt a strange sensation ripple through space, like a breath held too long and finally released. The swarm paused. Not retreated. Paused. Confusion rippled through its movements. For the first time, its attacks lost rhythm. Its formations hesitated. Chen watched in awe. "What did we do?" Mara's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "We reminded the universe," she said, "why humans are dangerous." The swarm had learned to fear pain. Now it was about to learn something far worse. The fear of being alone. The swarm had never hesitated before. Across millions of years and thousands of consumed worlds, it had advanced with perfect certainty. Hunger guided it. Unity empowered it. Every thought was shared. Every decision was instant. Fear had never existed in the hive's vocabulary. Until now. The moment the human probe reached the edge of the swarm's core, space around it rippled, not with energy, but with silence. Sensors across the battlefield spiked and then went dark for half a second. To most species, it would have been nothing. To the swarm, it was a scream. On the bridge of the HDC Anvil Crown, Admiral Mara Cade felt it through the data streams. The swarm's movements stuttered. Entire clusters froze mid-advance. Others turned sharply, colliding with their own kind. "They're desynchronized," an analyst whispered. "Sections of the hive are no longer responding to central commands." Mara nodded. "Good. That means the door is open." Captain Elias Chen watched the same chaos unfold from the battered bridge of the Resolute. He said over comms. What exactly did we send in there? Perspective, Mara replied. Inside the swarm's core, something impossible was happening. The human probe did not explode. It did not attack. It did not emit weapons fire. Instead, it broadcasted memories. Not data. Not images. Experiences. The swarm felt heat that did not belong to it. Pain that was not shared. A heartbeat that existed alone, separate from the hive. Then fear. Raw, isolated fear. The probe carried recorded neural patterns, human trauma, loss, grief, and survival, compressed into a signal designed by Dr. Alina Reyes and her team. It was not meant to kill the swarm's mind. It was meant to fracture it. The hive recoiled as individual nodes suddenly experienced something unthinkable. Isolation. A carrier on the outer edge of the formation spasmed violently, then veered away from the rest, its movements erratic. Another followed. Then another. They're breaking apart, Lieutenant Voss said, awe and terror in her voice. They're acting like individuals. Chen felt a chill. That's worse for them than death. On Sanctuary Arc, Elder Archivist Selwyn watched the enemy formation unravel. For the first time since the invasion began, the swarm did not look unstoppable. It looked lost. A young Lirati beside her whispered, "What did the humans do to them?" Selwyn answered honestly. They taught them what it means to be alone. But the swarm was ancient. And ancient things did not die quietly. Deep within the core, something adapted. The central consciousness tightened its grip, forcibly overriding fractured nodes. The hive screamed internally, consuming its own damaged segments to restore unity. The swarm chose survival over mercy. They're collapsing their own formations, an analyst reported. Reabsorbing dissenting units. Mara's eyes hardened. Then they've understood the lesson. What lesson is that? Chen asked. That unity has a cost, Mara said. And they're willing to pay it. The swarm counterattacked. From the core, a wave of compressed matter burst outward, a living shockwave that slammed into human ships like a tidal wall. 2 destroyers were hurled off course, armor buckling. 1 cruiser lost engines entirely, spinning helplessly into the dark. Fleet integrity compromised, someone shouted. On the Resolute, gravity failed. Chen slammed into his harness as the ship lurched. Status, he barked. Voss coughed, wiping blood from her lip. We're alive. Barely. The swarm was no longer confused. It was angry. And it had learned something else from the humans. Sacrifice. They're targeting our weakest ships, Chen said. Not the biggest threat. The most vulnerable. Mara's voice came through, calm but heavy. They're trying to break morale. Chen laughed bitterly. Good luck with that. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, Chen said. You see what they're doing. They think pain makes us stop. They think loss makes us retreat. He paused as explosions flared across the tactical map. Show them how wrong they are. Human ships repositioned, not to flee, but to shield the damaged vessels. Formation broke and reformed into something messy, imperfect, human. No symmetry. No elegance. Just determination. The swarm struck again. This time, the humans answered with something new. From hidden bays, small craft launched, not fighters, but drones. Thousands of them. Unarmed. Fragile. Laughably weak. The swarm ignored them at first. Until the drones reached the carriers and latched on. They're broadcasting again, Voss said, eyes wide. Direct neural interference. Chen understood. They're amplifying the fracture. The drones did not attack. They whispered. Fragments of human experience flowed into the swarm, fear mixed with defiance, loss paired with stubborn hope. Stories of humans standing against impossible odds. Of soldiers holding lines they knew would fall. Of parents shielding children. Of last stands that meant something. The swarm convulsed. Entire sections fell silent. Others lashed out wildly. The core pulsed brighter, struggling to contain the storm inside itself. On Sanctuary Arc, Selûan sank to her knees, overwhelmed by the sight. "They're not just fighting," she whispered. "They're changing the swarm." The cost was not small. A human cruiser detonated as the swarm focused fire, taking hundreds with it. The fleet felt every loss like a knife. But they did not stop. Because humans had learned long ago that victory was not about avoiding pain. It was about enduring it longer than the enemy. Dr. Alina Reyes watched the data feed from Earth, her hands trembling. "They're holding," she said softly. "They're actually holding." A council member whispered, "At what cost?" Alina didn't answer. On the battlefield, the swarm's core began to withdraw, dragging shattered remnants with it. "They're retreating," someone shouted. Cheers erupted across human channels. But Mara did not celebrate. "Not retreating," she corrected. "Repositioning." The swarm had tasted fear. And fear, for a predator, could turn into rage. Chen leaned back, exhausted. If this continues." "I know," Mara said. "This isn't the end." She looked at the shrinking enemy mass, her expression unreadable. "This is the moment the galaxy will remember," she said quietly. "The moment the swarm realized humans don't just fight battles." She paused. "We changed the rules." Far away, the swarm carried something new with it as it pulled back from the dying world. A memory. A question. And for the first time in its endless existence, the swarm wondered if hunting humans had been a mistake. The battlefield grew quiet in a way that felt wrong. Where moments before space had burned with weapons fire and screaming signals, now there was only drifting debris and the distant glow of the wounded planet below. The swarm's vast mass was pulling back, folding in on itself like a wounded beast retreating into the dark. No one on the human ships cheered. They had learned, the hard way, that silence after a fight did not mean safety. On the bridge of the HDC Resolute, Captain Elias Chen watched the enemy withdraw. His ship was scarred and bleeding power, but still alive. He let out a slow breath he felt he had been holding for days. "Confirm," he said quietly. "The swarm is moving away from the planet." The tactical officer nodded. "Yes, sir. Their trajectory is shifting outward. They're abandoning the lower orbit." A murmur passed through the bridge crew. Relief. Shock. Exhaustion. Lieutenant Sonar Voss slumped into her chair. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." Chen didn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on the refugee station Sanctuary Arc. Thousands of small life signs still burned there, fragile but alive. "We stopped them," he said finally. "For now." Across the fleet, damage reports poured in. 3 human ships destroyed. 2 crippled beyond repair. Thousands dead. Thousands who had never been part of the Galactic Compact. Thousands who had crossed the quarantine line knowing they might not return. Admiral Mara Cade stood alone on the bridge of the Anvil Crown, hands resting on the railing as she listened to the reports. She did not close her eyes. She did not bow her head. She remembered every name. "Begin humanitarian operations," she ordered. "Medical ships forward. Evacuation corridors open. Priority is civilians." "Yes, Admiral." On Sanctuary Arc, Elder Archivist Selûan felt the station shudder, not from attack, but from docking clamps engaging. Human ships, scarred and smoking, moved into protective positions around the shelter like guardians. A human voice came over the station speakers, translated into Lirati tones. "This is the Human Defense Coalition. You are safe for now. Medical teams are on the way. We will not leave you." Safe. The word felt unreal. Selûan's bioluminescence flared brightly for the first time since the invasion began. Around her, survivors wept openly. Some pressed their hands against the transparent walls, watching human ships move with deliberate care. "They stayed," a young one whispered. "They actually stayed." Selûan nodded slowly. "That is what makes them dangerous," she said. "And kind." In the depths of space, far from human eyes, the swarm did not flee blindly. Within its core, the central consciousness pulsed, wounded but intact. Fractured nodes had been purged. Unity restored, but something remained. A scar. Fragments of human memory still echoed within the hive. Images it could not erase. A single human standing against overwhelming odds. Another dragging a wounded ally through fire. Voices saying, "Hold the line. Not one step back." For them. The swarm did not understand why such suffering was chosen. But it remembered. And it hated that it remembered. Back on Earth, Dr. Elena Reyes stood before the council chamber, exhaustion etched deep into her face. "The probe worked," she said. "But it wasn't clean. The swarm adapted faster than expected. Next time, they'll be ready." A counselor leaned forward. "Next time? You believe they'll return?" Elena didn't hesitate. "Yes. And if they do?" She met their gaze. "Then we'll adapt faster." On the Resolute, Chen finally allowed himself to sit. His hands trembled slightly now that the danger had passed. Voss noticed. "Captain, are you okay?" Chen smiled weakly. "Ask me again in a year." She hesitated. "Do you think the galaxy will forgive us for this?" Chen looked out at the stars. "We didn't come here to be forgiven." He watched a human medical shuttle dock with Sanctuary Arc, its hull marked by fresh scars. "We came because someone asked for help." A new transmission arrived on all channels. This one came from the Galactic Compact. The image of Speaker Talon appeared, his bioluminescence shimmering with colors Chen had never seen before: relief, awe, and something like shame. "Humanity," Talon said, voice unsteady. "On behalf of the Lirati Concord and every species watching, we owe you our survival." He paused, lowering his gaze. "We feared you. We caged you. And when the end came, it was you we begged." Mara Cade stepped into view. "We didn't come for gratitude," she said evenly. "We came because the swarm crossed a line." Talon swallowed. "What will you do now?" Mara's eyes hardened. "Now. We prepare." The channel went silent. Chen felt the weight of her words settle over him. This battle had changed everything. The quarantine. The balance of power. The stories the galaxy told itself about humans. The swarm had been pushed back, but not destroyed. And it would remember who had hurt it. As the human fleet began rescue operations, one truth spread quietly through compact space. The monsters from the heavy world were no longer at the edge of the galaxy. They were standing in the light. And they were watching the dark very closely. The galaxy did not sleep after the battle. Across compact space, signals flew faster than fear. Recordings of the human fleet's arrival. Sensor logs of swarm formations breaking apart. Translations of human command chatter, calm voices giving impossible orders in the middle of annihilation. Civilizations that had debated art and trade for millennia now debated one question only. What have we unleashed? On Sanctuary Arc, the wounded were being transferred aboard human medical ships. Lirati healers worked side by side with human doctors, their methods wildly different but their purpose the same. Lives were being saved that, days ago, had already been mourned. Elder Archivist Seluan watched it all from the station's observation ring. She saw humans carry injured strangers with the same care they showed their own. She saw them sit with children who did not share their language, humming softly to calm them. "They look ordinary," a Lirati attendant whispered beside her. "Not monsters." Seluan's lights dimmed thoughtfully. Predators often do. Far from the shelters, the human fleet regrouped. Damaged ships formed a loose defensive perimeter around the planet while engineers worked without rest. Temporary armor patches. Rerouted power grids. Controlled air leaks sealed with shaking hands. Captain Elias Chen stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching stars drift past the viewport. His ship would not survive another major engagement. He knew it. Everyone did. Lieutenant Voss approached quietly. "Captain, long-range sensors just updated." Chen turned. "The swarm." "No," she said. "The compact." The display shifted. Dozens of new contacts appeared at the edge of the system. Not human. Not swarm. Compact fleets. They arrived slowly, cautiously, holding formation at a distance. Ships of elegant design, polished hulls untouched by battle. Fleets that had watched from afar while humans bled. "They are late," Voss muttered. Chen said nothing. A secure channel opened. Admiral Mara Cade appeared on screen, her expression unreadable. "They're here to talk," she said. Chen exhaled. "Of course they are." Moments later, the compact delegation transmitted a formal request for dialogue. Neutral ground. Shared frequency. No weapons discharge. Mara accepted. The image of Speaker Talin was joined by others, representatives of species Chen had only seen in old databases. Calm. Controlled. Careful. "Admiral Cade," Talin began, "the compact acknowledges humanity's effectiveness." Mara raised an eyebrow. "That's one word for it." A representative of the Aurelian Combined spoke next. "Your intervention saved billions. For that, we are grateful." Chen watched Mara closely. She did not soften. "But," the Aurelian continued, "your methods were extreme. The psychological weapon deployed against the swarm, such technology violates several treaties." Mara interrupted. "You mean the treaties we were never allowed to sign?" Silence fell. "You quarantined us because you were afraid," Mara said calmly. "You watched us suffer our own wars, our own mistakes. You called us dangerous." Her eyes hardened. "You were right." The compact representatives shifted uncomfortably. "We propose," Talin said carefully, "that humanity be formally integrated into compact command structures. Under supervision. With limitations." Chen clenched his jaw. Mara smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "No," she said. The word echoed across the channel. "We will not be supervised," Mara continued. "We will not be limited. And we will not return to a cage because you're suddenly uncomfortable." A representative snapped. "You cannot act alone. The swarm threatens all of us." "And yet," Mara replied, "we were alone when we answered the call." She leaned forward. "Let me be clear. Humanity will fight the swarm. Not for your approval. Not for your politics. We will fight because they eat children and burn worlds." Her voice lowered. "But if you ever try to stop us again, if you ever choose fear over action, we will remember." The channel went silent. On the bridge of the Resolute, Chen felt a strange mix of pride and dread. "That," Voss said quietly, "sounded like a declaration." Chen nodded. It was. Far away, in the cold dark between stars, the swarm moved. It did not retreat further. It did not advance. It watched. The human memories embedded in its consciousness still burned. Pain. Defiance. Loss chosen willingly. The hive struggled to process a species that would sacrifice itself not to survive, but to deny victory to an enemy. The swarm began to change. Not just in form. In intent. Back on Earth, Dr. Alina Reyes stared at new data streaming in. Patterns she hadn't seen before. Neural structures in the swarm reorganizing, growing denser, more complex. "They're evolving again," she whispered. "But not toward us." A technician frowned. "Then toward what?" Alina swallowed. "Toward understanding us." On Sanctuary Arc, Selûan felt a chill she could not explain. She looked out at the human ships, scarred, exhausted, still standing watch. She understood then. The swarm had learned fear. The compact had learned dependence. And humanity had drawn a line across the stars. Cross it, and the galaxy would burn. The swarm returned sooner than anyone expected. It did not come in waves this time. It did not rush forward in hunger-fueled chaos. Instead, it emerged slowly from the dark between stars, its formation tighter, denser, almost deliberate. On human sensors, the readings were wrong. Too controlled. Too quiet. Captain Elias Chen felt it before anyone spoke. The Resolute trembled softly as long-range scanners adjusted. "They're not charging," Lieutenant Sonar Voss said. "They're waiting." Admiral Mara Cade stood motionless on the bridge of the Anvil Crown. She had hoped for time. Weeks. Months. Something. The swarm had given them days. "All ships," Mara said evenly, her voice carrying across the fleet. "This is it. Whatever they've learned, whatever they've become, it ends here." Around the dying Lirati world, human ships repositioned. Damaged hulls. Failing systems. Crews running on exhaustion and resolve alone. There were no reinforcements coming. The compact fleets stayed far back, watching, silent and safe. On Sanctuary Ark, Elder Archivist Seluan stood with survivors who had refused evacuation. They watched the stars ahead darken as the swarm arrived. A child asked softly, "Will the humans leave now?" Seluan answered without hesitation. "No." The swarm spoke. Not in sound. Not in language. Every mind in the system felt it, a pressure, a presence, a single focused awareness brushing against thought itself. Not hunger. Judgment. On the Anvil Crown, alarm screamed as neural interference washed across human ships. Crew members staggered. Some fell to their knees, clutching their heads as memories not their own flooded in. Planets stripped bare. Species erased. Endless consumption. Then something else. Human memories, reflected back. The swarm had learned. It showed them children hiding. Soldiers standing their ground. Ships charging impossible odds. Pain chosen freely. The message was clear. "Why do you resist?" Dr. Alina Reyes, monitoring from Earth, whispered in horror. "It's trying to understand morality." Mara Cade closed her eyes for one heartbeat. Then she answered, "Because some things are worth more than survival." She gave the final order. "Release the archive." Deep within human ships, sealed systems unlocked. Not weapons. Not bombs. Stories. The archive was humanity's last, strangest creation. A vast, compressed record of human history, not just wars and victories, but failures, art, sacrifice, laughter, rebellion, and hope. Millions of lives distilled into meaning. The transmission surged outward, carried by every drone, every relay, every damaged antenna still functioning. The swarm was not attacked. It was shown. It felt humanity not as prey, not as predators, but as something terrifyingly inconsistent. A species that could destroy itself and still choose to protect others. That could hate and still stand between darkness and the helpless. The hive mind convulsed. For the first time in its existence, the swarm faced a concept it could not consume. Choice. Entire sections of the swarm went still. Others shattered apart, unable to reconcile unity with individuality. The core pulsed wildly, then dimmed. And then, it withdrew. Not as a retreat. As a decision. The pressure lifted. The stars grew quiet. On every human ship, crew members collapsed in stunned silence. Chen stared at the tactical display. "They are leaving. All of them." Voss whispered, "Are we alive?" Mara opened her eyes. "Yes," she said softly. "And so is the galaxy." On Sanctuary Ark, Seluan fell to her knees as light returned to the stars. Around her, survivors cried, not from fear, but from something new. Hope. The compact fleets finally moved forward, their representatives scrambling to speak, to apologize, to renegotiate. Mara ignored them. Human ships remained in place until every civilian was safe. Until the wounded were healed. Until the last survivor was escorted away from the ashes of their world. Only then did humanity turn homeward. Across the galaxy, the story spread. Not that humans were monsters. Not that they were saviors. But that when the universe screamed for help, humanity answered. And the swarm, ancient and endless, carried that answer with it into the dark. A warning. A promise. Do not mistake mercy for weakness. Do not mistake patience for fear. And never force humanity to choose. Because when humans are unleashed, they do not just fight. They change what it means to win. End.